the workshop for August 20th. You can do roll call, please.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Councilmember Schweer?
Here.
Councilmember Wong? Here. Councilmember Nordby?
Here.
Mayor Monge?
Here. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please? So moved. So moved. Councilmember Cole.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Wong. All those in favor say aye. 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 Thank you very much. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
First topic up is park fee dedication discussion. This has been something we've been dealing with for a little while. It was part of the Sentinel Building and Centennial Building, but we have Attorney Jack here that is going to kick us off on that and kind of give us a brief history and where we're at now.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, so this is kind of ongoing matters, the redevelopment, got by a few different names, but the Uptown Commons development / the new Sentinel Apartments building. There was, back in 2020, there was a development agreement that was signed with the city as part of that. That included a park dedication fee in the amount of $80,100. Ordinary practice would be that fee would be collected before the plat was filed and recorded. That did not occur, so that fee has still not been collected by the city. We frankly do not have great records as to why that did not occur. There's one note on OpenGov about on the building permits that states park dedication fee will be paid later with no explanation of why later or when later. In talking with the developer, their understanding was they were apparently working with some city staff who were no longer with the city, and apparently came to some kind of an agreement with the city. There were some changes in the overall terms of the development. There was an increase in the cost of the former City Hall site and a number of infrastructure changes. Apparently, the developer's understanding is that that was done in lieu of paying this park dedication fee. Again, we do not have any particular records on whether that's correct or not. I will say, as you know, this is per a development contract that was approved by the city council as a body, executed by the city, as an entity. And so even if there was some kind of an agreement with an individual city staff member, that would not be an effective amendment to the development agreement. It would need approval of the city council, which the city council, even to this day, could provide. So if the city, this is not, again, based on our understanding, this was not a favor to the developer. There was potentially some additional work done on behalf of the city, some additional fees collected elsewhere. So this would not necessarily set a precedent for, waiving a park dedication fee just whenever asked. And so it would be up to the city council. What we're looking for in the end today is some direction from the council. The options are either to continue pursuing the collection of this outstanding park dedication fee, or direction to come back with a formal contract amendment that would be put on the agenda for a city council meeting at some point in the future to sort of, in either way, to sort of build the paper trail and have some kind of formal resolution of this issue. I understand the developer is here and is potentially able to speak to some more of the details. Otherwise, if the council has any questions, I am happy to provide any information I have.
You said that note was an OpenGov? Is that what you said?
Yes, so there was
Who put that in there? I mean, who was the?
So it was a staff member who put the note in, and then the staff member said, it said, park dedication fee will be paid later per the manager at the time.
Per the what?
Per the manager at the time.
The city manager?
Yeah.
Okay, that's who, okay, all right.
So it was, the city manager was not the person making the entry, but was referenced as the source of the delay.
And I'm understanding you right that the individual that placed the note is no longer with the city.
Yes, neither the manager at the time nor the person who wrote the note are currently with the city. So,
Okay.
and have been contacted and have not provided any additional information, did not have any additional records to share.
Okay.
You mentioned it wouldn't set a precedent for a waiver. Is that something, a precedent within our city or just generally speaking?
No, I just generally speaking, like, because this would be a waiver of the park dedication fee in exchange for these other items that were apparently done, they would not provide the basis for another developer going forward to, you know, claim unfair treatment or to ask for a waiver of this fee in another project.
These other tasks that the developer provided, those were not added to the contract either, correct?
That is correct, although it is our understanding that they did in fact get done.
Right. Okay.
But yes, there have been no formal amendments to the development contract.
There was a change order in December of 2020, it looks like, as far as that, and then the pay application. Does that have any signatures on it, or how does that work?
I'm not,
If I could, it wasn't a pay voucher per se, and actually, Jim, if you wouldn't mind coming up, Jim Winkles was the AMCON manager of the project at the time. But it wasn't a pay application, and I did reach out with WSB as well, and anyway, that wouldn't come into a pay application anyway. That comes from material costs, labor costs through the contractors, so this would have been something through the city and the.
I got that from the AMCO, or is it
AMCON.
AMCON letter that they responded with. So that's why I was curious between that and a change order. Usually when there's any kind of changes to any kind of contract, there's a change order. Like in my business, if I have 150 phones and we add another phone, it's a change order to make sure that we document it. So that's what I'm looking for. Yes, sir.
I'm Jim Winkles. I'm with AMCON, and I was the original person that came before the city council back in 2019, or maybe even 18, and was involved in the project from the get-go, as they say. We got introduced to some local people from North St. Paul, who you're all aware of, and so we decided jointly, having never met them, we decided jointly, worked out something that we'd move ahead. And I only heard a bit of what the city attorney was talking about, but and I apologize. I came from way out in western part of the cities, and traffic was brutal. And I finally called Tracy at about 10 minutes before we were going to start here. And I said, I'm down the road, that I'm coming. Sure. So the kind of the background of this whole thing. So I don't see anybody on this council that was on the council when we did this project. When we came in here, and I don't see anybody up at this table, by the way, different city manager, different city attorney, probably the same law firm, but certainly not Jack, I know that. Too young, I'll tell you, I don't remember that. But the genesis of it was there's a piece of property there, two-thirds of the property was a former city hall site. There were, and if you know it, there were two homes on the south side of the site, two single-family homes. One was owner-occupied, one was rented. There was a building on the west side, which we affectionately called the Blue Barn, if you remember that building at all. And there were a couple of businesses in there. There were about two or three residential units above that. There was a vacant piece of property. There was an old gas station piece of property. And the gem of it all was a 121-year-old two-story building, 2,000 square feet of floor that housed the dentist. And that building was, fortunately, and I don't know how it ever could have been, was not on the register, so we didn't have to fight that battle. That building was, and I don't know if you remember that building, But if you were handicapped and you had a dental appointment, you would call in before the dental appointment. They would come out with some of those ramps that you would use to change your oil. And they would put those down so people could roll up and get into the dental office. So that was the other building. So we went out and acquired all those sites, bought the 2 homes without, just went out and bought them without getting any approvals from the city in terms of a development agreement, took the risk, went out and paid almost $550,000 for those 2 homes. We bought the Blue Barn. Made a deal on the dental building, including building out his space over in the new medical building, built it out completely because he had to move before we could do anything. We had to take the risk to do that. That cost us about $600-some thousand. So anyway, that's the background. And the rules, when I remember sitting over here in a conference room on the 2nd floor here at a work session, and the rules we were dealt with is can only be a 3-story building. We'll never have a 4-story building on 7th Avenue. You have to have a minimum of 1 parking stall below grade for every unit. We have that. We have that. And we had to have a commercial building, our space in the building, preferably, they said, a restaurant. We have that. So we did everything we were supposed to do. For over a year in negotiations, we were talking, and the idea was the land would be brought in to the project at zero cost. I found out about a $250,000, I was told, negotiations that we're gonna pay $250,000 for that piece of property 1.5 hours before the final council meeting to get everything approved. So I said, okay, because we gotta get this project done. We had to get in the ground. We had issues with weather. We had to get going. And the big thing there was not that we couldn't get in the ground. You don't see it from the site. You know where the pit is, where the fire, the grills are, all that sort of thing, and then the other side, in the back, there's a parking lot. There are a lot of huge, and I mean huge, tanks underneath that ground to handle the water. We had to get that in the fall. Absolutely had to. And that was a requirement of the watershed district, which we did, and put that in. So that's why the urgency. So I finally said, hour and a half before the meeting, I said, okay, we'll do it. We have to. We don't have a choice. We'll pay $250,000. I did, however, since we were opening up negotiations, I said, okay, guys, if that's the case, then I want the park fees thrown into the project. I said, I don't have $250,000 in the budget. We don't have $250,000 in the budget for land. We want the park fees, which is $80,000. So we're short. The other thing that we did, if again, is a bit of background for everybody, 7th Street in Margaret, really bad utilities. The utilities in Margaret were 114 years old down there, way down there. They had to be replaced. So the city had a budget at that time of about $3 million to do the work. The bids came in at $3.6 million to do the work. There was no more money. City could not assess because there was a statement made at a business association meeting to the businessmen, you'll never be assessed for that street. So we had a $600,000 problem. We suggested to the city that perhaps if we did the project, we could get some economies using our excavators, using our pipe people, using our landscapers, using our concrete people. Maybe we can negotiate something that would get us in a situation where we could drive that price down. We finally did that. The price came in at about $2,000 less than $3 million. But to do that, we also had to forego any fees to manage that project. Now this, I don't want to say anything that somebody's back, but I'll guarantee you the city engineers got a fee for managing that construction or inspecting what we were doing. We took the risk of guaranteeing that project at $3 million. And we, without getting anything even paid for it, nothing, we just did it. And to do that, which is really interesting, which is maybe the first time in the state of Minnesota, we had to set up 2 separate accounts for the tax increment money that came into the project. One for the private property, one for the public property, both through Old National Bank. And so we had meticulously keep track of money going between accounts. Because Old National said they will only let money out under certain circumstances, so we had to be very careful as to how we were doing things out there. And, at the end of the day, it worked out. It all worked out. We got new streets, we got new utilities, we got a nice project, we took care, and by the way, there was also, we ran into a little bit of petroleum product. I mentioned there was an old station on the site. We had to pay another $50,000 to go in and take out a whole bunch of stuff, dig out a whole bunch more stuff. So it all worked out, and it worked great. And it is the epitome of what redevelopment projects in this state should be. It should be a partnership between the public and the private side. And in those partnerships, and when you're doing redevelopment like that, things are never like the petroleum. Things are all of a sudden, it's a surprise. You don't know. You got to have kind of a give and take and go with this thing to make it work. And that's what we did. We said, we'll do this, you do that, and you kind of keep going down that path. But we were very careful, and I think that's the thing that I want to really emphasize here tonight. We were really careful, not about keeping track of money. We were very careful so that with no way anybody could ever come back to us and say that we got any favors by working with local business people. That's really important because the local people that we're partners with did not want their name sullied one bit. And I can understand that. They should never be in that position. So we were ultra sensitive to make sure we said we won't collect fees. We said we'll pay the $50,000. And I would add, we even paid twice. We had to renew letters of credit that were ensuring that the public landscaping into some of the irrigation and some of the stuff, we had to post a bond with Old National Bank ensuring that city property and their landscaping would get done properly. City could not make up their issues. I'm not, Brian, but some people are having issues of should we irrigate these spaces or not irrigate these spaces? Well, so we had to hold that out. Old National Bank us kept on. We had to keep on renewing it twice. Each time was about an $1,800 renewal for our letter of credit to ensure that the city's property would get finished. So, I mean, it's a continual give and take, and that's what redevelopment is in Minnesota. And I tell you, the end result, though, is we made a comment. I can remember being in that room saying 4.5 years ago, this will spur on other things. And you can only look across our street from our site, and you can see what else it's done. It's created other activity, and it will continue to do other things in this city, and which is needed. I mean, there's going to be a rebirth. You can see it already. It's starting to happen, and there's going to be a lot more things happening here too. Not that we're planning anything, but I'm too old to do anything anymore anyway. But it's all worked out good. Everybody got what they intended to get out of this project. So I'll answer any questions.
Well, you brought up a good point when you first started, that nobody here is the same as far as the people. And, next January, we're going to have different people again. The thing is, the only thing we can go by is the records that are kept.
Right.
And we have no records of any changes that anybody did. We have a contract that was signed by everybody, and it was in there, and there was no change orders. Is that normal?
It's that pay app you've got there, that was generated by us for our purposes. And we have to have pay applications to submit to our lenders to get funded for whatever we do. And it just is that. Is it normal? I wouldn't say it's normal, but this is not a normal project. Far from a normal project. It's not just one piece of property doing one thing with I'm the borrower, you're the lender type of a thing. We had subcontractors doing this work that were, an excavator, he's out there doing, where's the line that he's supposed to keep in track of what's public, what's private when he's doing that? I mean, that is enormously a difficult task for these guys using a backhoe or using a grader out there to move dirt around and find that stuff. When you're doing landscaping, where do you plant this versus on this? What's public, what's not? I mean, you guys all saw that when that project was going on. The downtown was a mess. We had half the street blocked off, all the time. There were, it was hard to get around. So, no, is it absolutely normal? Is it abnormal? Those things, they happen.
Well, my thing is with the 250,000, you did the change and you added that. Wasn't there something written up when it came to that time, or was it?
I suggested that we get that done. It never got done for some of the circumstances you just talked about, people change and people are gone, and it never got documented. But, and in the interest of getting it done, and knowing the costs that we would have incurred, or this project may not have happened. And it's not because you can't dig during the winter. You can dig footings and put in footings. We do that all the time. But with the type of system we had to have for drainage, with these enormous tanks, which nobody even knows exist under there, you'd have to see the plan. We had to get that thing in the ground. And that's why when I was told, hey, you got to do this, it was kind of like, well, okay, let's do it. We'll figure it out later because we got to get going.
Yeah. I appreciate that. The only thing we have to look at is the contract, the original one, and now as being up here and with our taxpayers, we have to say, how we forgive 80,000 when we don't have a paper record of it. So that's what we're trying to work
I
on.
forgave probably $90,000 in normal construction management fees without having anything documented from the city.
That's why we wanted you here. We need to understand. We just can't, pencil whip this and not talk about it. We need to justify
We
this.
actually submitted, one of our project managers on the job actually submitted, on the first pay app to the city, submitted a bill for a share of what had been 3% of project management fees. And Scott Dudek said, no, you guys said you'd do it without, I didn't know that was gone. So then our guy, he was told that. Scott came to me, and our Scott at AmCon came to me and said, the city rejected it. I said, that's okay, because that's what I agreed to.
Any other questions by anybody?
You reference yourself as old, and I tell you what, you're sharp as tack. You remember everything from day one.
Some people just write good notes.
Well, I appreciate you coming here and telling us and filling us in on the background. I mean, this was 4 years ago that you all had been working with this, and this was brought to our attention recently this year. I also agree with you. Everybody up at this stand is brand new. We don't know what was agreed upon, what negotiations went down, and it's one word versus nobody that's up here. So, I appreciate you being up here, but in discussion, I'm curious to see how people feel. I sit on the Parks and Recreation Board, not board, but I am the representative, excuse me. So I'm interested in some discussion up here regarding this.
We do have, on the extending a letter of credit on behalf of the city, where we paid $1,800 a time. We've got all kinds of letters on that. We have all kinds of documentation relative to the city putting in, are they going to put in or not put in the irrigation into where the trees are out on the city's property out there. And we have a lot of that sort of thing. We have a ton of information relative to what we had to pay to buy properties, what we paid to relocate the dentist and do that property, what we had to do to correct the soils because of the petrol problem out there, which is in the contract saying that that's a city cost. And we opted because we said we don't want to make something look bad here and part of this is, you made a comment, you're up here, you're brand new. This is at least the third, if not the fourth time in the last 4 years we have tried to explain this issue. And our story has never changed from the first time. We have people, we did things, I sat in meetings, Tracy sat in meetings, Gene sat in meetings. We all heard the same thing. Not once did anybody say you should be paying $250,000 for that property. We talked, the cities, we worked with the Michaela Hewitt, who's the city's financial advisor. We sat in meetings after meetings. Your predecessor, whatever, your partner down there sat in meetings over a year, 14, 15 months, not one comment, hour and a half before a meeting. And
So how did it start at 0 and then 250,000? What brought that upon? How did that all of a sudden at the last
everything
minute?
I think on anything is negotiations. You're talking, this is what we need, this is what we think we need, this is what we want you to do.
It started at 0 though.
Started at 0, and we never left it. We
And
never left it.
an hour and a half before it goes up to 250.
Hour and a half,
closing.
250, yes. I remember it distinctly, and then people have asked me, why do you remember that so well? Because I had COVID, and that was in November of 2020. That was before, 5 months before any vaccination. And I could not leave. I was in my basement. My wife let me out of there, threw down a little bit of food every now and then. That's about it. But because I remember, I couldn't come to the meeting. I told her, I can't be at that meeting. But I did say, we got to get this going. We are at that point. We have spent, we bought and closed on 2 buildings. We bought the 2 houses. We bought and closed on a dental building and committed to building out a space. We made those risks because everybody was working together on the council. Everybody was talking, all the staff, everybody was talking, we're doing this deal. So we had to make decisions, so we took a risk. We were probably $2 million into this project. And I couldn't stand to wait for another 2, 3, 4 weeks to document some of the stuff. We had to go. It would have cost us another $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 if we couldn't get going because of the weather. So you got to do things. And again, unusual project. How many cities can say that they had a developer come in, do his own project, then build public streets, but then keep 2 separate accounts for how you develop into the tax increment to do that? City of North St. Paul had never done it. I had never done it. I've done all kinds of tax increment projects over my career, but I've never done anything like that. We had to go down to Old National Bank and sit down with them and say, this is what we have to do because we have to separate these 2 accounts. And that took a long time. Then we had to go sit down with the title company who could not understand how they were going to be separating money and approving money and allowing payments to be made out of one account versus the other account. And that was really a highly unusual project, highly unusual.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody?
Yeah, I have a question. So, the work's done, there's a potential fee out there, but I think the people who are at a loss in a way is the parks department and all the activities that the parks do. So, I'm kind of curious, how do we make up for that? I mean, that's $80,000 that the parks don't get to use.
If I could comment on that, it was not a question of do we want to pay park fees. I didn't care where the money came from. I latched onto one thing I know that was still out there, which was the park fees, $80,000. As far as we're concerned, all this money, we paid $250. I said I don't have to pay $80. We paid $50 more for petrol issues, which is right in the contract. We had to pay extension fees for letters of credit for the city. $1's a dollar for us. We don't care. If somebody would ask me at the time, I'd have said, you're getting $250, for the land. And we actually the cost, if you look on there, wound up being $350 that we ultimately paid for the land. I'd say transfer $80,000. To me, it would have been simple. Take $80 out of that and give it to the park board.
Thank you. I appreciate your comment. I think that's kind of where I think there's a bit of a difference between private and public, is that we do have to look at those impacts. So just something for us to ponder a little bit, but that is something that I'm sitting on and just a little uncomfortable with.
And again, if I could end one thing here is, there's not a city out there that gives you a permit if you haven't paid all your fees. We got a permit. And everybody was satisfied that we had satisfied every single condition on that development agreement. And again, this is the 4th time I have tried to explain, or we've been questioned as if we've done something wrong. We've done nothing wrong. We saved the city a lot of money. We got the city a project they had no ability to do by taking on the roads and the utilities out there. That was never got done, which is the definition, by the way, of tax increment financing, because the ultimate test is but for the use of that, could this project happen? Would have never happened if we hadn't stepped in and helped them.
Well, I apologize that it's the fourth time, but, this council up here is good at getting things done. So we're going to get this figured out and be done with it for sure.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that thought, because this is an issue that's been hanging, done, not done, not done, type thing for all these years. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I think the finance director has raised
Yeah,
his
yes.
hand.
Way back there?
Yep.
When you sit in the cheap seats, I can't see you. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, heard all of the dialogue. It's really, there's two separate issues that are going on here. One is for you to decide whether what you've heard is accurate, a reflection, especially with the city not having very good records. But at the end of the day, what needs to be done with that is it needs to be memorialized, needs to be put into an agreement, it needs to be brought back to the city council. And you vote on it. If you agree with it, you pass that amendment. As far as Councilmember Wong, you make a very good suggestion, and I know Councilmember Schweer did too. That money would have gone into the park dedication fund. So when this item is brought back up, memorializing it with an agreement for you to vote on, I'll also provide a potential funding source to be able to make the park dedication fund whole of that $80,000. I do believe, and I can't quote if there's enough to cover the 80, but it's probably pretty close, that there still are some funds that are available through the bond funds that were related to these two projects. So if that is enough to cover it, that will be the source. If not, I will, suggest another source. Again, final decision, city council. But those two pieces would be brought forward. But at the end of the day, I think there was a very good comment between private sector and public sector. And that is, this gentleman did a fantastic job of explaining and his memory fantastic of going through it. The difference is, and he's right, I've done construction management for many years, and things happen on the fly. The difference here, first of all, is a change order. The contracts weren't our contracts. Change orders would have never come to our city council for approval. The only changes that would have come would have been to the development agreement itself. And that's what we need to have memorialized, part to it. The other part to it in a public versus private is that we have a formalized board that needs to approve everything. There's no delegated authority that has been granted to cover this. So this does have to come back to city council for its final decision. So if it's okay, we'll work with the city manager and the attorney, and if you'll help us memorialize some of the great memory that you have, we can bring a document forward that is acceptable by the attorney for you to review and to either approve or not, and also there will be a funding source, hopefully to make the park dedication fund whole on that.
So we're just looking for consensus this evening on where you're at, and then
Can I
we
clear
can.
up something else?
Absolutely,
too,
please.
If you don't mind. So the only one that can change is the city council when it comes to negotiating the contracts and everything else. Is that correct?
City council approved
Correct.
that contract unless they delegated that authority to somebody else, which was not done in this circumstance, then yes, it has to be brought back.
So then when it was negotiation, it should have came back, during that time, it should have came back. So we're missing a step here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So negotiations were done without the city council. If you don't mind me taking a second here, we had the one Lilly building over there where Jim was having some issues with the first floor, trying to figure that out. And, we came back and as a council, we decided to do something, which we could have decided to do something here if it came to the right spot.
Absolutely, yes. And that's the difference.
I just want,
I'm not going to say they did anything wrong.
Nope, they didn't at all.
They were doing it in the best interest of the city and to do things. It's just whoever was in charge and had the authority to either say yay or nay on the city's behalf should have been the city council, or they should have asked the city council for delegated authority.
Yep.
That individual or individuals, they're in the wrong on this instance. That's why, to make it corrected, we do need to have the amendment brought forth for the city council.
And I'm all for making it whole and correct, but we have to make sure we don't keep doing the things that weren't correct.
Yeah,
And I
and-
think
and-
we proved with the Lily that, a developer comes to us and we're able to help, but we need to be involved. Right now, we're coming back, we have absolutely no documentation on our side. We couldn't prove a thing if we had to, because there's nothing.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, I'm not pointing finger on any individual for any blame or that. In the time that I came here in later part of 2021, we've had, and not all the city council members were here, two of them were, we modified our policy, our purchasing policy. And we have another draft of some more changes that we'd like to make that'll come sometime in September. We have had a clean audit all the way through. What that's reflective of is things have changed. We have a different culture. We have a different leadership. We have a fantastic city manager who's not allowing any of those things to occur. So the bottom line is, can't correct the history of things in the past. We're going to correct it appropriately, and that's where there has to be an amendment brought forth.
And I don't mind getting a black eye if I know we're going forward. Sometimes
And
that's what
I-
happens when you look back in the past. You got to take, you have to, learn and go forward. And that's where I wanted to say, I think we're in a better place now, and things like this won't be for the next council 4 years from now that's trying to figure out what the heck we did.
Absolutely. No, and I've noticed the change in the city council leadership that's really pushing for those things. And I think you pointed it out. You saw how the Lilly development went. And that's not the only change. There was a big change as far as, TIF financing component to it, where we pooled funds. So everything came back to city council for approval.
Perfect. And that's, then records are, we can understand and try to find something. So great. I appreciate that for everybody.
But correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't have documentation for the bottom floor for the Lilly building, or Article 7? That's correct, right? This is a side, but, yeah, just to
Yep.
your comment.
Any other questions?
Jason does.
I just wanted to thank both of you for coming out. I view this as you just giving us information. Please don't, this was information gathering. Don't hold it against us. We have to, make the right steps forward. So I hope we haven't eroded your trust with the city.
I'm very good, I just, but following up what the mayor said, let's get, let's just get that. We have a great project, it's worked out good for the city, good for us, and, one thing we need is you guys keep going to the rest. We don't pay their rent.
Well, you can tell you don't have a skinny mayor, so you're good at that point.
They are our tenant.
Yes.
And by the way, if you don't know, the restaurant tour is a native son.
Oh, yeah, he's on our EDA.
Oh, okay.
What do you want next?
So are you looking for direction on,
A cons-
are we agreeing or disagreeing on collecting this $80,000?
That's correct.
Jack, do you want to repeat how you started? You gave us two choices in the beginning, and I forgot them.
Yes, so the two options before city council right now are basically pursue collecting the $80,000 in the park dedication fee, or, formally, get a formal waiver of that fee, and that would be brought forward as a formal contract amendment that would be brought before city council at a future meeting.
So, can I ask a question? Is there a third option where we say the money they paid is formalized by a contract and 80,000 of that money that they had already paid goes to the park, and Dan will make that right?
It sounds like Dan had proposed the option of taking the bond money. If this is decided not to go to pursue the developers, that we could potentially take whatever's in the bond money, whatever that looks like, and put it in the park dedication.
Can you explain just the bond money, where that is, why that's been sitting there, and just that kind of thing, if you don't mind? Is that a fair question? I don't know.
It's a fair question. As the gentleman said, this was a very, I came at the tail, end, very complex project, because it's a TIF district. The city bonded $6 million on this project, also took loans out of, from the state through MSA dollars. It's all in a TIF district. It just happened at the end of the day that there's some, some bond funds. Every time there's a project, there's always some bond funds that are usually lingering. If you recall earlier this year, I wanted to close out one that had, I think, about $130,000 that we ended up closing that bond fund out, and it was on the debt side to it, and transferred it over to cover a change that we had done with our building inspection. So there happens to be some money in that debt fund, I believe, probably enough to cover this. So let's play it all back. I honestly believe what he had said. And so what he could have done is that, and it should have been, that there should have been an amendment at that point in time for the $80,000. He actually had a claim for a lot more than that, but we're going to leave it at $80,000, so let's not go too far. But but if it was brought forward, the city would have had to come up with that $80,000 at that point in time. Park dedication fund would have been made whole. The park dedication would have been thing. It's all after the fact. So we're going to try to make that all happen at this point in time by memorializing it into some sort of amendment form. If the city council decides that they're okay with what the information was provided and they want to go this route. In addition, with that, is that we'll suggest the funding source to be able to make that park dedication whole. Remember, if everything would have been done correctly once upon a time, you would have paid $80,000 or more, let's not call it park dedication, out of something. They would have paid their park dedication fee, it would have gone into the park dedication fund. Somehow it appears that there was, through negotiations, a trade-off. Sounds like they got the short end of that trade-off, but they're okay and they're not asking for anything onto that. So my suggestion is, if city council, and need your direction, if city council is in agreement with what has been presented in front of them tonight and said, yep, I agree that there was probably some, I'll call it quote-unquote horse trading done. It wasn't memorialized, so let's memorialize that. And if the city council's okay with that, pass that, we'll make the park dedication fund whole, and we're done with this as an issue. It does not, as Jack had said in the earlier, it does not set a precedent for anything. And we also know that culture has changed here. So this isn't going to be something that's going to be repeated. So that's kind of my final thought on it.
Mayor, if I can add to that, what you just said about the bond. The $6 million bond, in support of that bond, in our development agreement, we have guaranteed a minimum value on that property of $18,250,000.
Can you come up to the, if you don't mind, because we got a lot of people at home that listen, and then we're going to say we missed a big section, so thank you.
Sorry, I was going to say, in support of that $6 million bond the city sold to make all this stuff happen, we signed an assessment agreement with the city for, which we said we will guarantee, regardless of what happens to that property, a minimum value on that for assessment purposes of $18,250,000. That number was not pulled out of the air. That number was discussed and approved by your legal staff and, more importantly, your financial advisors that do all your tax increment analysis. That was the number they came up with that said that's the minimum number you have to be willing to guarantee to make that happen. We are prohibited by law to ever challenge that below $18,250,000. So it's there. So, and that is what supported the bond to make this whole project happen, was that guarantee, which is still in effect and will be for my grandchildren.
Very, very correct statement. So,
Appreciate that.
yeah, what he's talking about is, it's a minimum assessment agreement, and it goes through to the county for their review and approval. It's in place as long as the tax increment district's in place. What it does for the city is that it guarantees that we're going to get a certain tax increment back. That's why Michaela from Baker Tilly was a part of that. And so we should be able to get the cash flow on an annual basis to pay all of our debt payments that are on that bond, and that the city is not at risk for default on that.
Okay.
Which doesn't happen on all tax increment districts. And so that is actually a bigger piece, because, you know, market values could drop like that, and they're still paying property taxes at that.
Based on the
is it
18.
18 million, I think is what it is, assessment value.
Last year, not at 18,250, it came out at 19,550,000.
We had strong upwards in commercial rub. Yeah.
Guarantee the lower.
Yep.
It can go
There you
above.
go. It doesn't happen in Vegas that way, does it? No. There's a floor, yep, ceiling, right, yep. So,
With all due respect, may I have your name again? Jim, I apologize. Thank you, Jim. Again, thank you for everything. I do believe that we do need to get this in writing. Again, this is conversations that none of the office staff here and council had been involved in. I am in the belief of what was agreed upon in the past. And even though I sit on and represent Parks and Recreation, did they know about it? No, it was a surprise when it was brought to us. The fact that there are some dollars in the bond, we don't know those specific dollars, but to have that idea of what that is and if it is to cover it, my decision would be to forego this, trying to go after this $80,000, because you saw this fee, not knowing really what this fee was, and you had proposed to get rid of it, and it was agreed upon that you weren't going to be charged it. So that would be my recommendation on my end. I, of course, have 4 other people here.
Mayor and council, if I may, just, there was a question from, I believe, Councilmember Cole earlier about, is there a third option for what, or Jason, sorry. Basically, is there a third option of moving the money around? And I would say, from a legal point of view, there are the 2 options, and then separately from that, the city could decide to make a budgetary decision to put other money towards the park dedication fee. Park dedication is a specific money collected at a specific time for a specific purpose under a specific authority. So it would be forgiving the park dedication fee in the development agreement, and then the council would separately consider whether to increase funding to the park dedication fund through some other means.
Yeah, and that was my intent to have them, because park dedications has its specific state statutes to it, yes.
So we will revisit that, obviously, at another time during budget session.
I think it would be a separate item outside of the budget part to it. That would be a whole two separate items that would
Perfect.
come forth to city council and definitely can be on the business item for discussion and any follow-up questions, and then a resolution attached for both of them.
I hear you.
so when we do this resolution, that other resolution will be with it to take that money. They're separate items, but they're going to
Yep.
happen at the
Yep.
same time, so
Yep.
that way we don't forget to.
Yeah, you would have the amendment go first, and then you would have the funding of the transfer, because if you don't do one, I
Yep.
wouldn't do the other.
Perfect, so.
Excellent.
Any other questions, anybody?
I think guidance now.
Yeah, well, I appreciate, thank you very much for explaining that. We're not setting precedent, which would have been concerning to me. I think we fixed the issue of knowing who the right party is that's supposed to be doing this, as far as that. So those are 2 of the major things that I was concerned about with my notes, so, thank you.
how does guidance work from a workshop when we can't vote? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you can give us
Can we have
direction.
consensus at a
You can give us
workshop? No.
direction.
Yeah, the council members can express their views, and then we can hear what is expressed, and that will shape what formal action we bring forward at a.
That's legal and we're not.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no final action taking place tonight.
Right.
What would happen is that guides the resolution that we will then draft and bring before you in future.
And the two resolutions is either we forget, it's yay or nay when it comes to that, and then the other one's completely separate. So the resolution would be that we wouldn't go forward with trying to claim, and go from there, right? The guidance.
It would be to
Yeah.
accept, it would be to
Yeah.
accept an amendment to
Yep.
the contract and that $80,000, yeah.
To waive the fee.
And waive the fee.
And then from there, we work on our stuff.
Yep.
Does everybody in consensus? Can you ask that? I don't even know. Does anybody have any questions on that?
What's your opinion?
We just go down the road.
Yep,
and get more-
go ahead.
Uh-huh.
Cassie's given hers. Start on mine or yours? All right. First off, Jim, thank you. This is awesome. One thing that you can quickly tell by looking at council and looking at staff is there's a whole lot of history that was lost when people either retired or moved on, which makes a lot of these things a lot more difficult. It makes it tough for council to make decisions on. We talked a little bit about the difference between public and private. In the private sector, Director Winnick called it horse trading. I think I wrote down something fast and loose. That happens in the private sector, and it doesn't necessarily need to be documented or approved or things to the extent that it needs to do when you're dealing with the city entity. It was far from, I think, the normal project. They put a camera up on the top of one of the buildings over here so that everybody could keep an eyeball on what was going on downtown on a, to-the-minute basis as far as what was going on. I do not believe that anybody benefited from this, one side or the other. I truly believe this was win-win. And I think that either based on timing or the horse trading fast and loose, however you want to take a look at it, decisions were made that normally wouldn't have it wouldn't be done the way they are today. For those reasons, I'm all about making the amendment and waiving the fees.
Thank you, Councilman Cole. Councilmember Norby?
I agree. Without having stuff documented, recorded, I believe these gentlemen at their word. I believe that's truthful what happened. I'm also in favor of waiving the fee and then making things right later.
Thank you, Councilmember Norby. Councilmember Wong?
Yeah, I had some of the same concerns around, setting precedent. I think, this is another lesson for us as in a city is to document, which again, I think we're doing a better job at. I do appreciate the building that's gone up. It's definitely caused a buzz in the community, so thank you for coming out and sharing your perspective. And with that said, I think that we can go ahead and I would be okay with waiving it this time.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Wong. Myself, I already said that, we're in a different place and we're better off and we know where the chain is. So I think I agree 100%. When it comes time, I think we can do that too. So it's unanimous when it comes to going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And
Thank you, guys.
hope to never see you again. How's that?
Well, actually, I hope to see you again. We're going to put some more stuff out here,
Well, he
right?
said after 4 times he was tired of coming, so. We are too.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Put it behind us, because there are
Yep.
always next things to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is right now.
Well, you're always welcome here.
There's a lot of interest going on, and what you guys probably don't see, but I hear, there is interest in North St. Paul.
Yep. Oh, there is.
People making comments, and so there's good things ahead.
Well, we appreciate it. And then we do hope to see you on
Thank you,
another
Jim.
project.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, we gotta have Ron talk fast tonight.
All right, whatever your budget is, cut it by 80K and then go. Come on, Randy, come up and I can probably make that work.
All right, next topic is 2025 budget discussion, levy budget. So I'm going to kick that over to Finance Director Winnick to start us off.
This is a continuation of our budget discussions on levy budgets. Tonight, we'll have Ron Ritchie, the Director of Public Works. He'll cover street maintenance, urban forestry, and parks. I do want to say that from his 24 to 2025 proposed budget, it'll show a total of approximately $30,500 increase, or about a 1.5% increase. I don't know how he did it, but that's also, that small increase of 1.5% is covering 7% increase in personnel costs. So that means the remainder of his budget is being decreased by over $40,000, or a 4% reduction. In my time that I've been the finance director of the city of North St. Paul, I have been extremely impressed with Mr. Ritchie and how he directs his staff, and how he is very conscientious. And he does treat what I've always said, and in trainings that I have given, is that he treats the taxpayers' money like it's his own. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ritchie to walk you through his budgets.
Well, thank you, Dan. You're being way too nice to me. So any questions, and I'll be done.
What's the next big truck?
Dan, yep.
Is this hooked up? Yeah.
Yeah, I had it on.
He's just having some tech issues.
We got a pretty picture of Finance Director Winnick right here we're looking at.
Let's get off of that.
He was all tan. He's taking advantage of the pool, we can see.
We were on. He had me on.
Well, we'll have to talk to our guest here today about some of the other open property we got. He's a neat guy.
Yeah, talked about the old clinic site.
Mhm.
Nice.
So Ron, you said your presentation's done, right? You've already cut everything, we're good?
I cut what I could. If I got to come up with I thought it was something else. I'll have to go back to the drawing board. Right. I guess I didn't. I came here way early to make sure that this would work. That's a whole.
Oh, funny. Well, clearly it isn't. It's you.
That was a great presentation.
Well,
The animation that was put in was phenomenal.
well, was your, that's your budget now, just a blank screen?
Blank screen, that's what I got to work with.
We'll tell your staff that too.
I presented, but they didn't like it.
$0.
That's right. We're even saving power. We're turning off the computer.
That's how we're cutting power.
The electric's not here, but
That's still,
Better be careful with Mr. Wick. Uh-oh. It may be more than just your computer, my friend. Sounds like they're investigating.
or do we need to save it for next time?
Yeah. Got a little AV stuff going on. I apologize to everybody that's watching online or listening, so.
Do you know what section we'll start off first?
now you smoked my computer.
Yes, in the handout, it's page
A new one's not in the budget,
40
so you
of
better fix it.
61. Page 40 of page
Oh,
40
okay.
of
Street
61.
maintenance.
Street maintenance.
Thank you.
Yay!
Danny,
Very nice.
Can we get it
yes,
down
you
there?
did.
Take credit.
There we go, we're
Don't
good,
touch
we
it.
got it.
Okay, well, that didn't take too long, so thanks for having me. The I'm just gonna go through real quick, just the kind of goals of Public Works. I got streets, parks, and forestry. So I'm just gonna give quick overview, really fast here. If you have questions I suppose I'll just go through this. Just stop me if you have questions, and after this, if you have questions, I can answer those, as time goes on. So, Public Works, our goal is to maintain Public Works core services the highest level we can. That's our streets, parks, water, sewer, sanitary, forestry. Said we have 10 guys total in Public Works on our best day, and then Randy and myself. We do try to take great pride in our work, what we do. We try to get work done in a timely manner, and we really try to be more proactive than reactive to things that happen here. Our streets, as a pavement, we're doing a 3-year, our PCI score of pavement index to kind of help guide us in what roads that we, are going to, repair or work on. With the addition of the pavement rehab program in 2024, our goal is to extend the lifespan of our existing roads and improve the ride quality without the extent of doing the full reconstruction. The additional money that was added to the 2025 budget is to try to help get that score to go up. The money that was added for 2024 kind of keeps us on an even plane. This is just trying to get that number to start heading in the right direction. Although we're not doing the full reconstruct with it's the water utilities, we're picking the areas that we have had the least amount of problems with water main breaks or the utilities, but we're just trying to get a lot of that red areas of our maps down to, better areas, by us 20 years on some of these roads, so we can, build this budget to hopefully in the future not be so far behind. Yearly, we use about 500 tons for patching. That's kind of our average over the last 5 years, about 500 tons. That's what we put out there for pothole patching. It is. Snow removal, snow plowing is a priority in our winter months. We take great pride in our plowing of the city, and our residents let us know. And a lot of times, if we have a truck breakdown and we're not in a neighborhood at a certain time, we get calls. We explain to them, hey, and it might be just an hour difference, but in a way, that's good because, I feel that, that expectation is high, and we really, really try to meet that goal. Replacement of the trucks, when we're coming here, when we're replacing our trucks, the new truck, the technologies that they have in these trucks, it helps us save on salt. We can dial these in, we can use less salt. There's brine tanks that go on them. It activates the salt quicker. So the money that goes into this stuff, there is a payback for it. Let's see here. Our average time out in a year, normally it's about 15 to 16 times is what we kind of base numbers off of for going out per year. Last year, I think we were out twice, doing a full plow. The year before, we were out 28 times. So it's kind of hard, but like I said, we just kind of go off of our average of what we go out per year. The downtown district, with these buildings going in downtown, these apartment buildings, it's great. When we go and we put all these plants, we irrigate them, trees, there's a lot more labor that goes into maintaining that stuff. We have a guy that kind of does full-time irrigation between down there and our fields. In the future, additional equipment, may be needed to handle downtown. Last year, we rented a loader to test out how that would work, having another loader to push the snow out to the ends of town, because we basically have about from 1 a.m. till about 6 a.m. to get the snow out of downtown. And if you guys go downtown in the winter time, we remove pretty much all the snow from the sidewalks. We don't leave any windrows for people to step over on the curbs. And how we're able to do that is we push the snow in 2 different areas downtown and pile it up, and then we haul it out at a later date. but with the new buildings going in downtown, we're losing these spots to pile that snow. So we have to push the snow. We have some other areas we can push it, but we have to push it twice as far. So the addition of another loader, we have 2 guys down there instead of 1 to handle that, getting it out of there in that time frame. So that's all I'll talk about that here so I can get through some of this stuff. Street sweeping, we average about 6 to 8 times per year. The watershed district, a lot of cities only get out sweeping like in the spring and in the fall. They get out twice, and they really push to sweep your streets more often. We get out about 6 to 8 times per year, which we're in good shape with that. We have the ability to do that. Like I've mentioned to some of you before, getting rid of the street sweepings is really expensive. We actually truck our street sweeping to Mora, which is about a 2-hour round trip. One of our guys had talked to someone up there at landfill, and we save about $1,000 per load hauling it up there. It'd be about $1,200 to get rid of it here. And I think the closest place would be like Burnsville. But we do that on our off days, rain days, and we truck that stuff out. But that's like the big thing with the street sweeping is getting rid of the stuff because it's contaminated. Forestry. Emerald ash borer, you guys can all see that in town, or how bad that is and how bad it's really showing right now. Our emerald ash borer, for us, Public Works, we increased our removal to try to remove about 115 to 120 trees per year. As of 8/16/24, Public Works says we've removed 86 ash trees. We still have 400 ash trees remaining on public property, boulevards, parks, public land. We are treating 85 ash trees in the parks, and 115 ash trees. We've replaced 1 tree for 1 tree that we remove. So that's on the Public Works side. We received the Minnesota DNR relief grant, which is $400,000, $300,000 for public ash removal, and $100,000 for the low-income or private ash tree removal. The private ash tree, we had 38 applicants. Out of that, 81 private ash trees were removed. That money is pretty much spent, that $100,000. We have there's a couple, I think there's a little bit of money left, but we're just waiting to see so we don't go, over that amount. Public ash trees, there's 90 trees removed per that grant this year. 90 trees will be replanted for that this late September. We have about $150,000 remaining of the $300,000 for that. And then our continued trimming of all the other trees. Parks, our park amenities continue to grow, so does the need for maintenance, including citywide building maintenance, cleanup after events. That are in the parks. Our desire is to enhance the safety appearance of our parks and parks facilities. We're adding some irrigation. We add some irrigation to Casey Lake Park, kind of the inner circle down there. Replanted some grass and just trying to make those areas look a lot greener, for that. That's I think I touched on all the budgets. All it is kind of a daily worksheet of kind of the things that we have to take care of and the people that we have to do it. So you can see mowing ball fields, park trash, grass, trimming, ice rinks, dumpsters. You can see the list there. So basically each day when Randy and I are making a schedule, we're basically picking some things that we're not going to do for that day. It's not like, and I'm not saying that we can't manage this or handle this, but we have a wide variety of things that we need to take care of, and depending on the weather for that day, I'd say 50% of the time we make a schedule for the day, and 50% of the time we end up changing or having to pivot and do something different for that day or adjust, for that, which, in a way, I don't mind that. It's, kind of keeps you on your toes, keeps things going, but just kind of, like I said, a brief overview of kind of things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So I know that was super quick, super high level. So I will stand for any questions that, that you have. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving us your report. It's your daily duty sheet and everything else. It's kind of cool to be able to see this stuff and how much work, trees and everything else. It's, sometimes you forget about all the stuff that's involved in your department, so it's nice to be able to see that. Thank you for your hard work and your staff.
You know, and I'm going to give a shout out to Randy. He handles the auction stuff for us, for our vehicles. We always get a trade-in price when we first price out a vehicle, you know, probably a year in advance. And I would say probably on average, we're getting double the amount that we get for trade-in, pretty close, by going out, putting out on auction. We might put a higher, higher reserve on it to see where things are at. But we do spend a lot of time trying to get the most out of the vehicles that we can and trying to, you know, save as much money for the city as we can for that. And, you know, he does a great job with that, so.
Well, that's appreciated, and taking it to more, be able to, I mean, you guys are really conscientious and always trying to save, and that really, we really appreciate that as a city. I mean, to think out of the box. You could easily go down to Burnsville and take the half a day and do whatever else. So doing something like that and just understanding that, you know, every penny when it comes to a city, you know, is helpful, so thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I mean, my only comments are, we're spoiled. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you both. To your point, you know, we get 11 inches of snow and we're dug out by 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. St. Paul is 3 or 4 days down the road. Street sweeping, everything else you guys do, thank you. We are truly blessed and spoiled by having you both.
Thank you.
One quick question is, how much extra salt do we have this winter, after the spring, for the winter?
Well, so.
Did you build a salt castle?
I'll give you as quick as I can on the salt. I have to order the salt in March for the year coming up. And the order I put in, I have to stick with, and I can take 20%, or is it, no, 10% more or 10% less. So we have to guess at how much salt we're gonna use. So if I asked any one of you, how much is it gonna snow this winter? You know, that's a hard thing to do. So we ordered a normal amount last year, which we didn't use. Now, I have to take that by a certain date, which I had to take it by, I think, April. And if I don't take it, I get charged a storage fee for every month that I don't take it. So you have to have enough room in your salt shed to take it. So we had a room, we had to pack it in there, we had to use a snow blower to pile it up high in there so we could take it.
Snow blowing salt. Now, I never heard that before.
That's so we could get it piled high. So we have probably 500 or 600 ton, I think we have 500 ton in our storage shed, which is about what we use on average in a year. So this year, I ordered half of what we did last year. So we have some on hand and we have this. But I also talk with some of our neighboring cities to see what they are ordering. And because if we did run out, the only way we could get some more is like barter with another city or have, you know, borrow from them.
Well, you really have to guess. You got to be a weather guy besides being the public works director and everything else, huh?
We usually spend a few days on it. And
Heads,
guys
tails.
argue back and forth. There's some heated arguments sometimes, and we're all going off of just guessing a number. So,
Well, I'm glad you have a lot left over after. I appreciate it. So thank you. If nothing else,
I also agree. Thank you so much for everything you guys do. I mean, you're on top of things. When something happens, whether it's garbage in a park, you're on top of it. So thank you.
you're welcome. And like I said, if you have any questions looking through line items on the budget, you know, don't hesitate to ask. I will justify, you know, anything that we do here.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Are you sitting there for the next one, or are you going to say something? Oh, no, I'm not saying a word. That a boy.
Nothing further. Nothing further. Yes.
Anybody so moved? Councilmember Cole?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Schweer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. If we can take a 5 minutes before, we'll start around 6:36.
So